tonight is our kickoff. So Cold Smoke is a multi-day festival celebrating backcountry culture, mountain community, and safety, featuring clinics and demos, films, events, and competitions, all centered around safe, responsible riding and learning in the mountains. You're going to find State of the Snowpack posted up in the demo village, showcasing our Polaris Sled raffle, which we have tickets available for tonight. Come say hi, check out the sled, and chat Snowpack safety and community. See the full festival schedule and everything happening throughout the weekend. Oh man, some people are getting shushed. It's like a library here. I love it. To see all the full festival schedule and everything happening throughout the weekend, head to Whitewater Cootie Cold Smoke website. Dive in and sign up to the last minute clinic competitions for the weekend. All right. And so we want to do a quick land acknowledgement. We want to thank and acknowledge that we're gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Sinaiks people, the Silex, and the Tanaha peoples. We feel privileged and grateful to be here and honor the ongoing presence of the Sinaiks in this land. We're mindful of how we carry ourselves today so as to just demonstrate our intentions to honor this land, water, and all its beings. So, disclaimer for tonight, the information we present may be our own observations to the best of our ability. This presentation does not replace actual avalanche training. Sign up for an AST or CAA course this winter. I recommend Kootenay Backcountry Guides. Are there some Judson Wright fans here? Oh my God, I like that. What you do with this information we present is your responsibility, so use it responsibly. So what is State of the Snowpack? For anyone who's not familiar, it's a nonprofit organization committed to making snowpack knowledge accessible, approachable, and community-driven. These events aren't technical science lectures, they're conversations. State of the Snowpack delivers this knowledge through free, community-based avalanche awareness events held across Canadian mountain towns every winter. Each season, the network of chapters continues to expand, reaching more communities and bringing the story of the snowpack to more people than ever before. State of the Snowpack will be hosting in 10 mountain towns across Canada. Please ask questions, connect with folks, and enjoy the night. All right. My dad, true story, my dad is not a news anchor. He's a librarian. So I want everyone on the count of three to shush. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I like that. Okay, this is really important what's coming up. Oh, no, it's just the sponsors. We want to thank the sponsors, Arc'teryx, Helicat, Polaris, Hub, Selkirk Snow, Cat Skiing Climb, our local sponsors like Rome, Village, Ski Hut, and Valhalla Pure. These people have donated cash, they've donated prizes, and they're the ones who make this possible. It makes it possible for this to be free to come in here, free to live stream. So we want to make a ton of noise for them if you could do that right now. And then we have our affiliates who've actually given us a bunch of cash. Retallic, Mountain Medical Consulting, Equa Insurance, She Shreds, Kootenay Backcountry Guides, The Royal. Make some noise for The Royal, everybody. Whitewater, anyone ever ski there? Prestige, who has the grand prize tonight, Kiefer Lake, and Backroads Brewing. Special news, Backroads Brewing has their very own State of the Snowpack IPA. Does anyone have it in their hand right now? Oh, look at that. Man, now drinking has made the backcountry safer. This is amazing. So we got this amazing draw going on tonight. We've got some prizes here. I'm going to talk about those in a second. But Polaris, this is incredible. Drinking and snowmobiling are making the backcountry safer somehow when put together. Because Polaris, who has been such a great partner, they've donated RMK 850 worth 21 grand that they're going to donate all the proceeds for in this draw to State of the Snowpack, keeping these conversations happening and keeping live streaming and access free. So you can take your phone, scan these two QR codes to win yourself a snowmobile. And then that draw is going to happen until the tickets sold out or until the end of March. But right here, we got some great prizes that are going to be drawn tonight. And that, of course, is a set of BCA mini radios thanks to Valhalla Pure. Make some noise for Valhalla Pure. 2 Raff Cs for Endless Adventures. Make some noise for Endless Adventures. 2 single day lift tickets for Whitewater Mountain Resort. Make some noise for Whitewater. Make some noise for Kiefer Lodge for making a swag bundle. And then our grand prize, make some noise for the Prestige Hotel, who's giving us a one-night stay there. So again, this is going to be up all through the intermission, but once the intermission's over, the raffle is closed for the swags that we're giving out tonight. So one other thing we're really interested, if you feel that your life skiing in the backcountry, living in a mountain town isn't fulfilling enough for you, hey, let's all do a shush on 3. 1, 2, 3, shh. Oh, I like this. AMSR. If you do not think that time in the backcountry is fulfilling enough and you need more in your life, well, why don't you join our team? Look at the cool table here. We got all the coolest cats in backcountry here volunteering their time, and that could be you too, part of the State of the Snowpack. We're looking for people who can do fundraising and grant writing. We're looking for an intern, ideally someone with a master level student or equivalent, who specializes in nonprofit fundraising, grant writing, and capacity building. So if this is someone you know or this is you, why don't you go to the State of the Snowpack website or talk to the cool table here, and we would love to have you help us out. So speaking of which, we have a State of the Snowpack website. State of the Snowpack website for all your updates of what's going on, the ongoing conversations. There's even hot pictures of Jay Wishlow, who's not here tonight. Make some noise for Jay Wishlow. Where you can find out more about these events and where they're happening in different towns. It's happening in over 10 towns across Canada. So let's do a survey. Raise your hand if you ski tour. Oh, no, I don't like actually raising hands. Make some noise if you ski tour. Make some noise if you split board. Make some noise if you snowmobile. What if you were the powder of parkour? Any snowshoers here? Oh, like 2 of them. Amazing. And then I usually ask if there are ski guides here, but they always fucking tell us anyway, so we don't have to ask them. We got some great presenters here. We have a couple things happening. We got Wendy Lewis, who's a forecaster. Everyone knows Wendy. She is the princess of the rodeo that is known as the Avalanche Ranch. She's going to be telling us all about our current forecasts that are happening right now. And after that, we're going to have an intermission where you're all going to pull your phones out and you're all going to buy these tickets and win some great prizes. And then we got Bruce Gardave, Neil Gilchrist, Jay Manthan. Oh, who are people cheering for? Bruce? Oh, Bruce. Jay Manthan and Jill Wennick. Oh, Jay. Okay, we got to find out who's the coolest cat here. Make some noise for Neil Gilchrist. Okay, it's here, Bruce Gardave. He owes you money. Jay Manthan. Jill Wienick. Oh, it's Jill. It's Jill by landslide. They're going to say what's there in their bag, and they're going to tell you what they use in the backcountry to keep themselves safe. We're going to kick this thing right off right now. We're going to get this thing kicked off right now, right out with, like I said, the queen of the rodeo at Avalanche Ranch. This is none other than our local forecaster. Let's all make some noise for Wendy Lewis.
Somewhat help. Thank you. So I just met Chris Mansbridge officially for the first time tonight. I've been waiting since December to see how I would be introduced. It's pretty good, I think. I went from princess to queen in the space of like 30 seconds, so I will take that. I do still owe you money, that's true. I did forget it. Okay, we're going to jump straight into the State of the Snowpack. This presentation comes at a really good time. We're in a period of change, some pretty dynamic change. I looked at the forecast a week ago and thought I wouldn't have much to talk about, and that was entirely wrong. So things change very, very quickly. Right now we have a midwinter snowpack with midwinter problems and kind of spring temperatures. So things are kind of funky out there. It's been a roller coaster of a season. We've had highs and lows, rain, some good pow days, some really interesting avalanche cycles, some icy days, warm weather. Kind of reminded me of home more than once. I'm from New Zealand. It's icy and warm there. Please visit. It's great. But from a snowpack perspective, it's been really interesting. We've kind of seen almost the full spectrum of avalanche problems and some pretty dramatic swings between them. So we have a lot to kind of get through. We'll start with our seasonal history. Who's first time at State of the Snowpack here? All right. Oh, welcome. Thank you for picking my presentation to be your first. I hope it lives up to what you dreamed of. So this is a water equivalency graph. We look at this every time just kind of to start off the presentation. We can think of this as how much precip has fell, how much water has fallen out of the sky. And it gives us a timeline of what happened over the season. You are here. That shows you that we are the blue line this year. It's really interesting to look at this to compare us to historical averages. We are well above average. Whenever anyone says that to me, I think that's a huge compliment. So we'll take that. We've had a lot of precipitation this season. That's no surprise to anyone in this room, I think. A lot of it has fallen as rain, liquid, which is a bit of a bummer, but it happened. So this graph counts all of that as well. It's not just snow. It's looking at total water equivalency. And it also allows us to look at kind of the story of our season, the timeline. We can see we started off kind of on average with historical norms. It was a really solid start to the season. It got a lot of people very, very excited. We had a bit of a dry spell moving into December. You can see that levels off. And then the taps turned on. We were all super, super stoked. That's our big spike up. And then we can see our latest drought that just ended about a week ago. I think another thing to look at with this, and we're midway through the season. It's our third presentation, but we're midway through the season, so a lot can happen between now and the end of the season. To break it down a little bit more into how this played into our layers, early season started off really, really good. We had a decent amount of early season snow in November, and then it got really, really warm. We formed our November crust, kind of near the base of the snowpack, and that's fairly typical for the Kootenays. It's happened every year since I moved here, 9 years ago, I think. So that's pretty classic. We moved into December, we got heavy snowfall. We had some shifting freezing levels. If you guys remember, that was, I think, the first 3 atmospheric rivers that hit the coast. We kind of get the dregs as it moves inland. So we got a bit of snow, but we had rain and then snow and then rain and then snow. So that formed kind of a series of crusts through the snowpack. Temperatures dropped and snow continued. We had 200 centimeters total of measurable snow in December, which is pretty amazing. So the taps turned on, skiing, riding, snowshoeing got really, really good. We had a series of freezing rain crusts. Those are often not super widespread. It's when we have snow that falls through a warm layer in the atmosphere, so it melts, and then a colder layer near the surface. So it's essentially super cooled droplets freezing on contact. Those can ruin the skiing, or they can just kind of ruin your goggles and you have to scrape them off. We had a series of those. And then we went into a cold and clear spell. We had facets and surface hoar form on the surface. Surface hoar, it's in the name. We moved into January 2026. I think we were all pretty hopeful. New year, new us, new snowpack. And we got that to some extent. January started off great. We had 120 centimeters in the first 2 weeks of January. So again, again, we thought the taps are on. This is it. We're clear. We're in the clear. And then it rained again. Tell me how you really feel, Chris. So it rained again, and the real kicker there was we had the rain form a crust, and then it went dry for 2 weeks. It was a really long dry spell. while we had that crust sitting on the surface, we had a really large layer of surface soil. That's the kind of top left picture there. Form. And this was super widespread. This layer was present all the way up to the North Rockies. Super widespread throughout the interior. We were definitely not alone in our suffering here. And then late January, I think it was the 28th, we had snow that finally buried the surface soil, and we broke our dry spell. We moved back into a storm cycle. So that produced a small natural avalanche cycle, and human-triggered avalanches were slightly larger to size 2. We can see the natural photo there is partway through the storm. The natural wasn't as extensive as we would have assumed it would be with surface horror. Surface horror we typically associate with touchy conditions, reactive and wide propagation. We didn't see that much of that. It remained reactive to rider triggers. So we had 1s and 1.5s being reported around Whitewater and wider in the Min. The middle picture there is from Idaho Peak, that kind of area, and this side is from Kootenai Pass. So the surface horror was remaining reactive to humans, but we didn't see as much avalanche activity as we thought. It really hadn't hit the tipping point for widespread natural activity or for wide propagations. We can see all these avalanches are relatively small in the scheme of things. And we know that surface horror doesn't go away very fast. It really resists bonding in the snowpack. It holds a lot of air in that layer. So we continue to see avalanches, human-triggered avalanches on this layer up until the last couple of days. So we usually get avalanches when we have it storming, it's loading that layer. But if it doesn't avalanche, it kind of remains primed for human triggering. And we often talk about it being a hair trigger. So this is a remotely triggered avalanche from Acidophilus. This was Tuesday, I believe. So Acidophilus is the backside of Silver King Ridge. That's kind of the crown, because it's a little hard to see on this one here. So when we talk about hair trigger, it doesn't want to go naturally. There's not enough stress on that layer to make it go naturally. But when somebody approaches that feature or walks adjacent to it, that's all it needs. So this is a clear sign that our snowpack is unstable and pretty classic of surface horror. And I think this is a challenge for a lot of people. It makes it really tricky. Your margin of error with the surface horror layer and remote triggering needs to be larger, right? And it's often hard to see where that line is until you've crossed it. I loved this min, by the way, the person that posted this min, Mountain Information Network, great resource if you haven't seen it. They posted this picture and the words, "Ended my day here." I believe they skied that back down into Whitewater. It was a good decision. Good decision. That brings us to now. It's February and it's spring. We had spring in January, now we have February, spring, and who knows what will happen next. We'll get into that later. And it's warm. It is really, really warm out there. So the hill, we made it to +7 today. Yeah. That was the consensus of everyone at the hill today. It was beautiful and sunny, but it's warm. So the sun came out on Tuesday afternoon, and there was this 5-mile size 2 accidental. This one was really notable. We had the person who triggered that avalanche managed to ski out of it. They were more kind of in the middle of the slide there, and it propagated around their friend, their partner, who was above, kind of near the top of that second rock there. That person went for a 100-meter ride. They're okay. But again, surface horror, super touchy. And it can trip a lot of people up. You can't see this picture over here, but it's an avalanche, I swear. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put it in there. This was a natural from Kootenai Pass after the sun came out. We really found that the temperatures increased. The sun really helped to consolidate the slab above the surface horror layer. So that makes things more reactive, more sensitive to human triggers. Might go naturally. And it also, in general, might support more propagation. So it might support larger avalanches. Today, Freezing levels went to, I think, 3,500 meters. Does it really matter when they get above the peak? Not really. It's high enough, but I wish it wouldn't go higher. And I was really excited because I was like, I knew this presentation was coming up. This is going to be perfect. I'm going to have lots of really cool pictures to show you. So many avalanches. And not much happened. This was kind of the most notable one. So we kind of saw temperatures push up and up and up each day. And the snowpack, it avalanched. It rollerballed. We had some wet loose. But we still haven't seen the widespread natural cycle we expected, or that we really want to see to get rid of that surface hoar problem. So it's still sitting there. Dun, dun, dun. So that brings us to now. These are our notable layers of the season. November rain crust down about 2 meters. December rain crust. January surface hoar facets. January freezing rain crust. Crusty, crusty, crusty. But the mid and lower snowpack is generally very well settled and well consolidated. The rain helped that. The warming has definitely helped that. We have our January surface hoar and our crust down 30 centimeters. That's our primary concern at the moment. And then we have our next crust that's going to form once spring ends on Saturday. This is a profile that was dug February 2nd, so before the warming happened. Digging during the warming would have been like digging through mashed potatoes. Not a whole lot to kind of see, so it's nice that we have this to kind of capture before that. And again, if you're first time here, we dig in the snow a lot to look at what layers we have, to test the reactivity, to look at the bonding between layers. And this is a lot to look at. There's a lot of layers here, right? We've had a lot of different weather events. Each horizontal bar is a layer, right? The height tells you the thickness. Harder, more dense layers track across to the left-hand side there. And the softer layers stay over on the right-hand side. So when we look at this, we're looking for red flags like a soft layer right next to a really hard layer. And then we do our snowpack test to see, will it fail? Where is that failure? And what kind of failure are we looking at? I'll give you a couple of landmarks there of our December crust and then our January surface hoar, which is still very close to the surface. Lots of people were out digging over the last week before and during the warming, and we've all had sudden and propagating test results on that surface hoar. So that tells us that it is a failure plane, and it wants to propagate, it wants to carry that fracture and produce an avalanche. And we know this, right? Those avalanche jobs support that as well. So we'll get to the forecast. Avalanche Canada forecast for tomorrow, Friday. We're looking at considerable at alpine and treeline, and moderate below treeline. Down here in the corner, our outlook. We're looking at an improving trend, so lowered danger ratings for Saturday, and then a slight increase for Sunday. And considerable, I think it's important to note, is one of the trickier danger ratings for people. It tends to be associated with the most accidents and incidents where people get caught out. And I think that's because your terrain management and your trip planning and everything with considerable is not as clear. It's a bit of a gray area. So if we have high danger, it's very clear. Stay out of avalanche terrain. Avoid exposure of avalanche terrain. Your trip plan gets dialed back to the simplest terrain or staying home. Very straightforward. If I tell you that it's low danger, it's the same but inverse. Avalanches are unlikely, so suddenly you have a wealth of options of where to go and what to do. At moderate and at considerable, it's more in that tricky route finding, navigating, terrain features, and planning your trips really, really carefully. It's really important to know what your avalanche problem is and where you can find it in that terrain. Because if I tell you we have a wind slab problem and the rating's considerable, straight away I'm thinking ridgeline features, higher elevations. So maybe I head to sheltered terrain and below tree line. That's fairly straightforward. But if I tell you we have considerable with a persistent slab problem, you really need to know which terrain features that persistent slab problem can be found in and plan your trip around that. So our first problem is a persistent slab. So that is our January 28th surface ore and crust. We just talked all about that. So AvCan's telling us we can find this at all elevations and all aspects. Bummer. That it's possible to likely, so fairly sensitive to human triggers, right? That makes sense from what we've seen from our avalanche observations over the last week. And that there's a real range of sizes there. So this has got size 1 to size 2.5. And I think the most important thing they've got is the written statement here. Burial depth varies widely, from 10 centimeters deep to 60. So where it's deeper, the likelihood of triggering larger and more destructive avalanches increases, right? So if I trigger an avalanche where it's buried 10 centimeters deep, I might get a size 1, depending on the terrain feature. If I trigger it where it's 60 centimeters deep, I'm in a lot more trouble. So definitely when you're trip planning, when you're heading out over the next little while, find how deep it is in your local area, right? We've had very different amounts of snowfall over the last week. Whitewater had 30 centimeters, but you might be heading further north where there was more. So definitely know what you're dealing with. And wet loose problem, number 2, lucky number 2. This is related, of course, to our high temperatures, high freezing levels, and strong sunshine, all aspects and elevations. And it's got possible with smaller avalanches there. So we've seen several days of above freezing temperatures. The snowpack's had a little bit of time to go through a couple of cycles of melting and freezing, right? This is spring. That's what happens in spring. So the avalanches there are more possible. So we want to watch out if we're heading to steep south-facing terrain. That would be my greatest concern, because those slopes are going to see the sun combined with those warm temperatures. That's where you're most likely to trigger that avalanche. Terrain and travel advice. This is kind of where the nuggets of information go that you can file away in your brain for when you're actually traveling through avalanche terrain or planning your route. So avoid areas where the snow feels stiff and or slabby. So our persistent slab problem, we have the most concern for it now that it's consolidated into a slab, right? So that's what that one relates to. And then remote triggering is a concern. This again, persistent slab, classic surface horror. Avoid terrain where overhead slopes is possible to trigger. So this is where our margin of error needs to increase with our uncertainty. We need to kind of step back into conservative terrain, give those overhead slopes some nice space to do what they want to do. They don't want you to go near it. They're not into human interaction right now. So give them their distance. And then the more the snowpack warms up and weakens, the more conservative your terrain selection should be. Definitely relates to wet loose, but we also need to remember that with persistent slab problems, higher temperatures often increase sensitivity. Cornices is a great reminder for this point in the season, right? They've been building all season and they get really, really weak in the warmth. Definitely something to remember traveling on and below cornices. Maybe don't travel on the cornice. I mostly covered this already with the photos that we've looked through. Avalanches on the surface ore layer up to size 2. We've seen a gradual decrease, generally small sizes. But in general, most avalanche activity has been most common near tree line, but on a variety of aspects. So again, when you're trip planning, tree line slopes are the ones we should be watching out for the most. Yeah, okay. Our snowpack summary, pretty straightforward. We can break it down to a crust on the surface. That's going to melt in the sun tomorrow and the heat tomorrow. Moist snow. Then we have our recent storm snow that's settling on the January surface ore melt freeze crust. And then the snowpack below is well settled. It's a fairly straightforward snowpack in that respect, and our concern is right at the top. So they're giving you most information about that there. And this is what everyone wants to know, the weather forecast. So we have one more day of warming. It won't be as warm as today, so that's good. Our tree line temperature is only 3 degrees instead of 7. That's nice. Then we have snow coming in starting Saturday, so we flip back into winter. Our freezing level is going to start around 1800, kind of falling down to 1500, so hopefully all of that is snow. And then continuing into Sunday. So a really good outlook there to flip back into winter. But how much snow, I hear you ask? Well, the models at the moment are telling us the consensus is kind of between 20 and 30 millimeters, so 20 and 30 centimeters. I don't have a pointer. Where's the pointer? You're welcome. I make it snow. I like this line here. Yeah. So we should all be burning skis and drinking tequila. And if you don't know why, it's because it's fun. And it makes it snow. Right? So it's looking pretty good. So we're going from a full spring pattern, again, drastic change, back into full winter. And our avalanche problems go with it. Confidence. I think this statement is going to stay in the forecast for the next little while. We always have a lot of uncertainty about buried weak layers. As a forecaster, they're the most challenging to forecast, especially during periods of change. Right? I thought we were going to see naturals everywhere over the last few days, and we saw limited activity. How's it going to react to the cool down? What's the crust going to do above it? Lots of uncertainties. So that is built into this forecast. The less confidence AvCan has, greater margin of error, I recommend that you have. I'm going to take a minute to pump up the mins. I do work for AvCan, so I read your mins there, but I also read them at Whitewater. We love your mins. Whoever submits them in this room, thank you. You guys do a great job. I used a couple of them in this presentation, but we read every single one and we appreciate all the information. I know people are hesitant to submit things. They're like, I don't know enough. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say much. You don't have to say anything. Put a photo in. Tell me where you went. Tell me what you saw. Don't tell me anything. Just submit them in. Bonus points if you have a really funny title. That keeps me going. But they don't have to be long. It can be 5 words. It can be 5 sentences. Some people write paragraphs. You don't have to. I recently started writing my weather in haikus when it was high pressure. That's an option. You do you. Whatever expresses your feelings about the snow. But we really, really appreciate them, so please do. Okay, a couple of takeaways from tonight. Buried weak layers and warming, always a bad time. Didn't really give us what we thought we'd get this time. So that has a lot of uncertainty moving forward. But rapid change, so warming, rain on the snowpack, rapid loading from winds or snowfall, anything like that is always a time to step back. Right? I talk a lot about conservative terrain choices. I love me a good low angle powder wiggle. Right? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But the snowpack doesn't like rapid change. It likes to have time to adjust to things. It likes to think about it, likes to move slowly. Rapid change just stresses it out, gives it anxiety. We don't want to do that. And we've been through a period of rapid change, right? We've seen our rapid temperature rise. And we're about to head back into a time of change. So uncertainty is high. Snow returns this weekend. It's going to fall on a crust. How widespread is it? How supportive is it? I don't think the new snow is going to bond very well to it. And what's our surface or doing underneath it? We're going to have a crust with recent snow that's been sun affected and temperature affected, surface ore, and another crust. We have a really technical term for that in our industry, and we call that a shit sandwich. So I don't think it's going to be good. We're likely going to have elevated danger ratings for a little bit until we see what's going on there, until we get more information. And it's been an odd season so far. We've had, like I said, a roller coaster. It's giving me whiplash, some of the kids might say. And a lot of people ask me, what the season is going to be like. Like in October, November, everyone's like, is it going to be a good season? What do you think? Is it going to be a good season? I don't know. I'm going to have a good season. Snow might be terrible, but I'm going to have a good season. And there's lots of resources that we can look at to kind of give us an idea of what's coming next. We can look at La Nina, El Nino. Some people put a lot of stock in those. Some people swear by them. They'll make their travel plans to Japan based on them. A lot of people have been to Japan recently, and I'm not salty about it at all. At all, Ben. But I think at this point in the season, we have a better resource to look at. El Nino, La Nina, they give us an idea of what trends are, but we can have really good winters through both patterns. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a relatively new Canadian. I got my citizenship a year and a bit ago, 2 years ago. That's what I was looking for. But you guys have a really good resource over here that's really specific to North America. And it's called Groundhog Day. Now, no one has this in New Zealand. No one is pulling a kiwi out of the den and being like, does it see its shadow? What's it doing? No one is asking a kangaroo in Australia what's going on. There's just like, we don't trust them. They don't know. But over here, you guys do, and I think it's the cutest thing. So Van Isle Violet, she has predicted 6 more weeks of winter. They hold her out of her den. Apparently they hibernate. I didn't know that. I learned that today. And this is all from a very legitimate news article, by the way. They hold her out of her den. She's sleepy. They held her over a piece of paper, and she saw her shadow. But it was pretty contentious between the other meteorologists you have around the country. Shubenacadie Sam in Nova Scotia, he thinks it's going to be an early spring. Lucy the lobster, also in Nova Scotia, thinks it's going to be an early spring. So the East Coast, they can have that, right? They don't need winter. We also have Fred la Marmotte in Quebec and Wyerton Willie in Ontario. They all think we're going to have an early spring. They can have it. Let's let them have it. But everyone on the west kind of side of Canada, and Canada's real big, they all saw their shadows, and they predicted 6 more weeks of winter. So we have Van Isle Violet to thank for that, Manitoba Merv, and Balzac Billy. So you too can be a meteorologist if you just believe in yourself and look to see if you have a shadow. That's all I have for you guys tonight. I hope you got something out of it.
Everybody make some noise for Wendy Lewis. I asked Lonnie on Baker Street yesterday if he saw his shadow, and he talked to me about the government for like 30 minutes and never got an answer. So we got more prizes for you guys to win. We've got these great prizes from local vendors. I want you to scan those tickets. Last State of the Snowpack, we made $950, and I promised if we made over $1,000 tonight, I'm gonna get the Wishlow twins, Jay Wishlow, and his twin brother to do a shirts off push-up contest at the final one. So if you guys can make over $1,000, I'm gonna do everything I can to the Dukes of Hazzard up here doing a push-up contest. We're gonna take about a 20-minute break. Make sure you guys sign up for these because these are gonna go away after the break. We'll see you in 20 minutes. Oh, I like that. We'll introduce someone who's super special to this organization. Cath Paone, she's essentially the lifeblood. Oh my gosh. Everyone knows her. She's been so instrumental making this thing happen. Let's bring her up here. She's going to talk about the panel of guest speakers she has to talk about what's in their bag when they're in the backcountry. One more time, make some noise for Cath.
All right. Thank you for shushing whoever that was. You must be a teacher. Okay. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for sticking around for part 2 of the evening. Tonight we're going to have a panel discussion. So one of the most common questions we hear in the backcountry is, what should I actually be carrying? Tonight, instead of running through a checklist, we're going to talk about real packs, real decisions, and lessons learned over time. This panel is about what people actually bring into the mountains for safety, communication, repairs, food, and the unexpected. We're joined by a group of people who think about preparedness from a variety of angles: medicine, guiding, forecasting, and search and rescue. So tonight I'm going to introduce our panel. First up, we have Jill Winnick. If you don't know, Jill is a paramedic and the owner of Mountain Med Consulting, a wilderness first aid company. She volunteers with search and rescue teams and helicopter emergency medical services and is currently completing her advanced care paramedic training while working toward a fellowship in wilderness medicine. Damn. With over a decade of pre-hospital experience and more than 10 years of ski touring in the backcountry, Jill is passionate about wilderness medicine, teaching practical and evidence-based care for mountain adventures. Thank you, Jill. Beside Jill, we have Neil Gilchrist. Neil is a tail guide and photographer with She Shreds Mountain Adventures, where he's been part of the team for the past 3 seasons. He's been snowmobiling for over 20 years. He split boards regularly, and he has called the Kootenays home for the past 5 years, after spending 8 years riding out of Calgary. Neil brings a well-rounded perspective of how pack choices change across disciplines and conditions. Thank you, Neil, for coming tonight. Beside Neil, we have Mr. Jay Manton. Oh, Bruce, sorry. You guys aren't sitting. Good job following instructions, boys. Jill's only one, of course. Thank you. All right. So on the other side at the end of the table there in the red hat, we've got Jay Manton. Jay has spent more than a decade working into the intersections of forecasting, guiding, and rescue. He's an 8-year team leader with search and rescue with 10 plus years of whitewater forecasting and patrol. Yeah. When he's not doing that, he splits much of his winter assisted guide with Baldface Valhalla and Snowwater Heli. And when he's not guiding, Jade is focused on training and education, working as a CAA instructor and teaching first aid for the past 8 years. In the white grizzly hat, we have Bruce Gardave. Since moving to Nelson in 1994, Bruce has maintained a deep connection to the West Kootenay winter community. He joined Nelson Search and Rescue in 1996 and continues to serve as a team leader in both mountain and avalanche rescue. Bruce shares his expertise in snow science through local and provincial education as an instructor with the CAA and the Justice Institute of British Columbia and Kootenay Backcountry Guides. When he's not teaching or exploring the Kootenays, Bruce can be found heli guiding with 11 Heli Ski and Lodge in Revelstoke. Okay, so we're going to get into it now. The first topic we're going to talk about is the baseline, pack size, and carrying capacity. So Neil, I want to start by asking you a question. As a snowmobiler, on a typical day out with your friends, not at work, what do you carry on your pack and what lives on the sled? If you could start by showing us your backpack and telling us the size of the backpack.
I probably get the lightest pack because the lightest stuff goes in the backpack, the heaviest stuff goes in the tunnel bag. This one's 2 meters, and I mostly pack my layers in there. So lightest stuff first. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so I try to keep my jackets in there. Like the Mega Puff goes in there. Always 3 pairs of gloves. and I pack all the heavy stuff on my sled. So, which is behind me. I'll show you guys that later.
What size pack is that?
That's 28 liters.
28 liters. Nice. Cool. So, Jill, I'll move to you. What size pack do you have? Do you know roughly how heavy it is?
Girls pack heavy. It's a 42 liter. I will say it's an old backpack, so it's already heavy as it is. I don't know, 20, 25 pounds?
Wow.
25.
25, okay.
Yeah.
Bruce, can you show us your backpack, what size it is, roughly how much it weighs?
He's got balloons in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We put some rocks in it already, so just to let you know. So this pack here is the Black Diamond. It's a 32 liter pack. So I just got this one loaded with all my gear. It weighs in at 23 pounds.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah,
Well,
Jill's is probably way
Jill
heavier
needs to
than that.
reweigh yours.
So yeah, having to weigh my pack all the time, I definitely getting.
You can show us your pack, what size it is, and if you know how much it weighs.
Yeah, so I have the Orthodox 40 liter. I kind of run a 40 liter for when I'm ski touring and cat skiing, and then I have about a 32 liter when I'm heli skiing. So just depending on what I'm doing for the day and what gear requirements are needed, I change my pack through the day.
Is that like the pack you take touring, just like out with the
Yep,
pals?
I was literally just finished cat skiing today, and that was my pack. It's still wet, so.
Gross.
It's probably in the high 20s, if not 30 pounds.
Wet.
It's all the water. It was very hot out today. I was sweating a lot.
All right, so Neil, you kind of touched on like the extra things you have in your bag. So we're gonna talk about some extra layers and how you guys stay warm out there. What is one thing? It's kind of like one thing that gets trimmed to save weight is extra clothing like mitts, goggles, but warmth is also safety. So on a typical day out, what extra clothing do you always carry with you, even if you hope you won't need it? And Jill, I'll start with you.
I always get cold, so I always have an extra puffy, and then it's not necessarily extra, but like a Black Diamond light jacket, and then an extra pair of gloves and an extra buff as well.
And then one more question for you, Jill. From like a medical perspective, how quickly does cold, especially cold hands and wet layers, affect decision making and injury risk?
This has got to be the most difficult question to answer.
Oh, shit, sorry.
I mean, I could talk about cold for hours, but I would say that it depends. Like, there's a lot of risk factors that play into how fast you get cold. So whether it's how fit you are, so obviously fat insulates, muscle generates heat, so you want a good balance of that if you're lucky. How many calories you have, how well hydrated you are. So the more fluid intake you have, the more warmer you're going to be. How well dressed you are. So obviously cotton is just not a great option.
So like once you get cold, it can be hard to warm yourself back up.
Yeah, so once you do get cold, you're obviously not going to make the best decisions, whether that comes from like I just want to get back down to the car type of decision, or that my muscles are cold and I'm going to accidentally crash and have an injury or something like that. So yeah, there's lots of different factors. Any follow-up questions?
No, I'm going to go to Bruce and Jay. So what extra layers do you guys typically bring with you?
So whenever I pack my pack, I always like to have sort of one layer at the very base that I always keep. That's my puffy that I keep in sort of a waterproof sort of stuff sack at the bottom that's really there just in case. And 90% of the time touring, I never take it out. I never really need to use it. But at the top of my pack, sort of right in here in my helmet, I usually keep one layer that I can throw on any time. And it's a pretty light layer. So just for reference, actually doing this more for Jay because he really thinks I don't carry anything in my pack. But I do carry a vest, and I find them extremely useful, right? You can throw this on while you're still going up. And then inside, I still have a waterproof jacket in here. So that's usually what goes on for the downhill. And in the bottom is always the puffy that sort of stays in that waterproof stuff sack. The reason I like that is it's a down puffy to be as light as possible. But the waterproof stuff sack is really light and really helps prevent it in case I do get the pack wet or we get any wet snow, starts wetting out the pack. I do know that that jacket will still be dry. So again, it's actually more of one of my first aid parts.
Nice. Yeah. Just like everybody else, I carry an extra puffy with me. It usually lives in the bottom of my bag. I have that extra layer that Jill was talking about that I don't usually need to wear it. So I usually bring it with in case something goes sideways and we need some kind of layering for myself or somebody I'm with. When it's really cold, say like minus 15 to minus 20, that's when I start putting 2 puffies or like a vest, things like that in my bag, thinking for myself and for somebody else if they needed it. It's usually what I carry.
Do you guys also carry like extra gloves, like a thick pair of mitts or something?
Yeah, I always have a minimum 2, maybe 3, depending on how much snow. Like if I know I'm digging a lot of profiles in a day, I'll bring like 3 pairs because I'll go through a couple pairs, a couple toques, a light one and a heavy one is usually what I would carry for extra gear as well.
And then Neil, because you have the luxury of a sled, you also you spend a lot of time moving around, but then you also stop and you chat about it. So are extra layers essential for you guys on the sled?
Oh yeah, for sure. Same deal. I got the puffy that lives in there. I hate getting cold, but because you have the hot machine, you deal with a lot more moisture. So I have minimum 3 pairs of gloves. And gloves. If you have mitts on a snowmobile, you're nuts. That's a problem waiting to happen. So yeah, at least 3 sets, and I try not to stop.
Try not to stop.
Yeah,
Don't get stuck.
Yeah.
Noted. Okay, so next we're gonna go into the overnight reality check. So if something went sideways and you were stuck out overnight, what in your pack is actually helping you get through that night? So we'll start with Jill again, and then we'll go to Jay, and then we'll go to Bruce and Neil.
Besides my emergency mini egg stash, I swear I don't make money off of this product. I wish I did. I can find it. So I carry a Ready Heat vest with me. When it comes to the cold, there's a lot of cool things to learn when our body gets cold and what happens when we get cold. Like we don't clot when we get cold and things like that. And so this vest is important for lots of different things, but if you're stuck overnight, it creates heat for 8 hours. So it's like those little hand packet things, but it's a blanket or vest that goes around your torso. So this paired with a proper way to keep you warm, like a tarp or things like that, I think that is my go-to piece of equipment.
I also carry one of those Ready vests that Jill has. So mine, I have a tarp. My emergency tarp lives there. And then inside my bag of that is my Ready vest right there. So it lives right inside there. I don't use this very often, so it kind of gets packed up, and when I need it, I got it. I also carry a thermarest full.
The thermarest is pretty essential too, because you can get yourself off the snow, so you're not being cold.
Yeah, that's the key, is getting off the snow and getting that that heat lost through the snow right away. And it's nice, you know, if you're just sitting there, somebody can blow it up. It takes about, I don't know, 20 seconds to blow it up. And you can sit and have a nice lunch and everything else, and you can sit on it and, on a cool day, and it's actually really comfortable.
Bruce, what's something you have in your bag in case you're stuck overnight?
Yeah, so when I was guiding, or when I'm guiding, I used to have microclimate. It was a little bit heavy, so when I was out with friends and ski touring, I had started with just this survival blanket that I had, but I've actually moved beyond that, and I brought this just to show you guys. So now I've changed over, and now I've eliminated the sort of survival blanket totally from my pack, and I've gone fully to my microclimate now because I found this one that's basically 240 grams. So it's basically just 100 grams heavier than this unit. So there's no real reason to bring this anymore. And the microclimate, if you throw this over, this will fit 2 people. You can deploy it really quickly, and it works great. One, to keep you warm underneath it. So with 2 people underneath it, your temperature will probably always be above 0. And again, it also works really well in first aid. If somebody's lying on the snow, I can get this out, get this up, and we can operate or work underneath this to make sure that we're keeping them warm as well as doing first aid underneath the tarp. So this is sort of my go-to now, which is Rab does this one, and they call this the super light shelter. So at 240 grams, this is something that I pretty much now never leave home without. So it's always there, always with me. And this is a full integrated stuff sack, everything else. So when you pop this open, Neil and I could be hunkered down there and stay warm all night long. So it's a great idea.
Cozy.
Yeah, maybe you wouldn't want to, but.
And Neil, do you have something that you have in your bag in case you get stuck?
Oh yeah, it's in the trunk though. I'll crack that open later, but I carry something similar when I'm ski touring. But when you're on the sleds, I've got a cheaper. It's like a 6x10 tarp. You can build a garage, a house, all sorts of things. And you don't want to have a nice one because it's also kind of an exit tool. If you need to wrap somebody in it, which then you don't care whether it's expensive or not. But if you're tarping the track up,
It's just a regular 6x10 tarp?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
And then fire starter. We're starting fire for sure. And
Yeah.
then always, like I always carry 2 water bottles and wide mouthed, and one is essentially sacrificial if you have to pour out gasoline or transfer any fuels. So that's another overnighter special.
Oh yeah, that's smart. So like if your sled runs out of fuel, you can borrow Buddy's
Yeah.
gas in his
Yeah.
tank.
Yeah. And if you've ever done it in like a tiny little water bottle, it's just not fun.
Cool. Okay, next one's going to be a bit interesting. We're going to talk about electronics and emergency communication. So, on a typical day trip, what electronics are you bringing? Phones, GPS, watches, radios, satellite messenger? What's in your pack most days? So, Jill, I'll start with you. Sorry, you're just beside me.
I'm pretty simple, just an inReach and then my phone. I have a Android, so I don't have to worry about an iPhone dying so quickly in the cold.
I also always have a radio. I got an onboard GPS on my Polaris, so I don't know if you guys have ever seen one of those. It's the best.
Does the screen die at all on the Polaris?
No.
So as long as the sled's running, the screen's available.
Sled's running and it will stay on for 10 minutes after you can set it up. But insanely slick. Like I find myself barely using my phone for navigation now. And then I've always got my inReach as well as probably a camera and what else did I read? No, that's about it.
Nice. Bruce, I'm going to skip over you and go to Jay. Jay, what do you have? I don't know.
Maybe. There we go. I also have a mini Garmin. I have my phone as well. And I have fire starter, so I send smoke signals out occasionally if I really needed it, right? So, yeah, those are kind of the key. And then radios. I always have a radio, some kind of radio for communication outwards to somebody that, whether to SAR or to dispatch if I'm good.
Yeah. So Bruce, this year at the KBG staff training, you mentioned that you have switched to the Apple iPhone SOS as your primary communication tool. Can you tell us why you have chosen that? And then also, what do you do about battery life?
Yeah, so this year I just decided to eliminate one other sort of monthly charge on my credit card, and I made the big switch from Android to Apple for the very reason that it has the new satellite communication system that's available for any iPhone 14 or higher with the new OSI update. So basically, I really like this because I can use it both summertime. I'm almost never without my phone, whether it's mountain biking, ski touring, or something like that. So I also find that personally, I really like to have pieces of gear that have multi-purpose in my pack. So the phone, if it's a satellite communication device, it's also a mapping tool system. It can also do slope angles. It can also do recording for snow profiles. So it can be a lot of usage. So I always have my phone with me no matter what. And I just found I was traveling with it. So there was like no need to really go out there and have a secondary device. When I'm at work, we use the Zoleo device. I found this unit, sometimes the Zoleo can't get out and I can just use my InReach to text out to the dispatch and let them know where we're at in that sense. So it's quite fast and it's quite good for communicating with the satellite system. I've used it with KBG, with all my check-ins and all those things. Battery life can be an issue, so you always want to be careful of that. So I do on the front, I can always go to the power safe mode. But another feature that I found that's kind of slick, is that I went out and I found this really small power bank that I can attach to the phone. So if I should get this phone and it should either die on me or anything, this power pack is pretty much like 3 credit cards together. It's ultra light and it'll basically slap it on the back and it'll power my phone. It'll begin charging it, and it'll begin charging it for a whole nother charge. So I'll get 100% battery life again out of my phone. I can leave it in my pack while it charges up. I can use it, talk with it, and do that. I don't have to have other cables connected to my phone. It's pretty fast and quite slick. And even as you can see there, when I charged it up, I had this out all day today. I was teaching the AST2 course, and I still have 50% battery power. And I always carry this battery pack. So I think that that's a pretty good backup as well, just in case the power goes.
What's the battery pack? Where'd you get that?
Yeah, I have to say I did get it on Amazon. Sorry.
That's pretty slick, though.
Yeah, but it was like really only like $35, so not a huge amount. And it does have a connection for a regular USB-C connection, so I can power other devices as well. So.
Okay, next we're going to move on. Who else is using an iPhone for their SOS? Just a show of hands. Okay, a couple people making the switch. Next, we're going to go on to repairs and problem solving. So, Neil, I'll start with you on this one. What fails first on a sled, and what has to be in your pack because of that?
What fails first? That's a loaded question. I would say anything in your drive system and the dangly bits. So anything that's exposed and dangling, most of the time you see brake levers, throttle, and then your wear items, your carbides, your belts, and yeah, it's a luck of the draw what else might break. But yeah, what else did I write down?
Do you have like a full toolkit? Do you have your toolkit?
Oh
or-
yeah, yeah. If you want me to bust it out, we can take a peek. But yeah, you have to have tools, and I also have like essentially a bag of spare parts. So
A whole bag of spare parts.
no, it's pretty big.
What's like been something that's failed on you more than once on a sled?
The primary spring in the clutch, and the Polaris is primed brake. Also throttle
Throttle.
cables. Yeah, the end of throttle cables, and brake levers are quite common. Yeah, but I've pretty much seen everything break. So.
Jay, from a SAR perspective, what small repair items make the biggest difference when things start to unravel?
Yeah, you know, a lot of times you're kind of doing the red-green patch job, right? Like tape, ski straps, rope, things like that. You know, depending what you need to do, they can actually hold things together fairly well for if things are going wrong. You know, ski straps are worth their weight in gold. They're so good for everything. Probably keep about 4 of them in my bag. You know, get skin's problem or you know, binding starts to break down or something. You can really hold things together. Your boots break, things like that. So those are really good tools to have from like just to keep it going.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce. Do you have anything else to add to that?
So like Jay and lots of other people, ski straps is a big one. I have a small first aid kit with that. But one thing I've really liked are these sort of heavy duty zap straps. Find all your electrician friends, like Ryan there, who's our friend from our electrical. And you can get these kind of heavy duty ones. And they work really well. They're super light. Throw about 4 of them in your pack. They don't take up any room. And they're really good to augment the straps, the sort of ski straps as well, if you get stuck out there.
Thanks. Next, we're going to talk about food, fuel for the body. So, Jill, from a medical and decision-making perspective, what does enough food actually look like for a day in the backcountry?
I mean, it depends how fast you get hangry. As soon as it sounds weird, but as soon as you're hangry, you're going to make bad decisions, and everyone's very different. But interesting thing about food is, so when we're cold, we burn about 5 to 6 times faster, or more calories, sorry. And so we're burning a lot of calories out there. And if we're eating things that our body can't digest quickly, then we're not actually going to sustain ourselves. And so the goal is to eat simple sugars and then build your way up. And so if someone's super depleted or just super tired or bogged down, the answer is not to give them your sandwich. The answer is to, if you have like simple sugar, like I carry honey with me, something like that, and get them to eat all of that and then work your way up to like sandwich. And then if you're on like a traverse or like like multiple days, then follow it up with fat, because that's going to sustain the fire. The saying, like if you have one of your friends gets hurt in the backcountry, the saying like don't feed your patient is going to go out the window. I know a lot of first aid courses talk about like don't feed your patient, they might have to go in for surgery. That one's busted. We need to feed our patients. Food is fuel, and if anything, it's like a little mental health boost to get a little bit of sugar when you're feeling crummy. Yeah, and then the same thing goes with hydration. So like I said before, drinking lots of water actually helps you to not be cold. So the way it works when our body is cold is that we vasoconstrict our arms and our legs, and we shunt all of our warm fluid to our core to keep our vital organs alive. So the more fluid that we have in our systems, the less vasoconstriction we have in our arms and our legs, which means the less likely we're going to have cold injuries, the less likely we're going to be hypothermic. But warm fluid doesn't warm our insides. So drinking a warm tea isn't going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to warm my core body temperature up. That's a myth. You would have to drink a lot of warm fluid to increase your core body temperature. So Water is fine, and it's if you can add sugar to that water, because that's going to increase your heat production as well. And then on top of that, alcohol causes vasodilation. And so when you drink alcohol, you're actually decreasing your core body temperature substantially. So even though it might feel like on the chairlift when you do fireball, you're warming your insides, you're actually not at all.
But you're increasing the fun.
I like fun. I just like facts too.
Gentlemen, I kind of want to ask you guys, like, what works for you guys when you're out there touring? Just say, like, not like a guiding day, but like out on a tour with friends or whatever. What's like your kind of like go-to to keep you sustained throughout the day?
I have a sweet tooth, so I'm a big fruit and nut guy. Cadbury fruit and nut. It keeps me going. I love that. Just little pieces as I go through the day. I'm not a big eater through the day, so I don't eat a lot. But I always make sure I have a full lunch, and I just usually carry it around with me, I feel like, by the end of the day. And then if not, I have it later in the day if it happens to be longer than I need, and then that's how I refuel that.
Thanks, Neil. I'm probably the worst person to ask about food because I really don't eat much at all during the day. Maybe if I had to, I'd have a cold piece of pizza or something for lunch. But most of the time, I don't have anything. And I will say, I save my calories for the end of the day because anybody who's been touring with me or knows me, I always have a cup of coffee at the end of the day. So it's got to be an Oso, and it's got to be there. Nothing else in it, just Oso dark roast. And then I'll have something sweet for the calorie.
I'm the opposite. If I'm not moving, I'm eating. So yeah, I'm mostly protein bars, nuts, big on fruit, and sometimes you bring up the charcuterie board. A lot of sausages. You gotta have
A lot
it.
of sausages.
Yeah, dried meat. Oh, it's good stuff.
Well, thanks for that, you guys. That was really interesting. I always thought like braining like a hot beverage would help warm your body, but now you know. It's got sugar in it, yeah. Okay, so moving more to like the kind of nerdy part of it. How do you pack your bag? So we've talked about a lot like what you guys carry, but how do you pack it? How do you organize it? What goes where? And what always lives in the same spot? Jay, if you want to start down there.
Yeah, like my bag pretty much everything lives in the same spot. I kind of put everything back in the same place. Usually how I pack my bag is the things I don't use very often go to the bottom. And, I found a big thing for me is actually looking at different bag configurations. Just because I buy something that comes in a bag doesn't mean that's the bag it needs to live in. So I'll look for, maybe I want it thinner, like, for example, my tarp that I put on the table came in a round bag, but it didn't fit in my bag. So I found a flat one so that I could kind of keep it down low in my kit. And you'd be surprised how much more room you can get in your bag by finding the right configuration bags to stuff things in. And then the top half of my bag is like where my food and water and skins and things that I'm using, during the day through transitions and stuff, and then everything else lives down.
Bruce, how do you pack your bag?
Well, sort of similar to Jay, I like to keep like my puffy in the bottom, the lighter, and then I keep the heavier things. So if I'm guiding, my rope kit goes in the center, my first aid goes in the center. Then on top would be my extra gloves. If I'm ski touring, on top would be my helmet, jacket. But one of the key things I've always looked for whenever I go to purchase a pack, and this is for me personally, is I really like this side zipper. Some packs have it so that you can open it up. But one of the things I always pack whenever I do it is I have this side zipper, and this might be useful to some people. But what I've done with my first aid kit is I've broken it out into two sections. So I have a main first aid kit that sits in the pack, But for all primary interventions, so deadly bleeds, airways, anything like that, I keep in this small kit that's right here, always packed last, right next to this zipper. So if I arrive on scene and I need to get to a primary intervention that I need to deal with right away, like an airway or bleeding or anything like that, I pull it out, and in this little pack here is a tourniquet. There's also a pressure bandage. There's a face mask. I also have a clip with a leash on it, a sling here, and a carabiner, again for tree wells too. So if somebody goes in a tree well, I can really get this quickly. So one of the key things I always think about when you pack your pack is think about what you might need in an emergency right away. So you've skied in, there's your friend, and you might need something. You don't want to be like digging through your pack trying to find something, your big first aid kit, opening it up, zippering it up. Another idea is to have a quick intervention kit like that. And then I've got a bigger kit that I can get to with more stuff that if I need to continue to do first aid. That's just the way I do it.
All right. Neil, is there anything you do differently?
So a little bit different. I carry all the heaviest stuff in here. I do agree with Bruce though. There's a couple things in the top of my bag that, yeah, like if there's deadly bleed, you gotta tourniquets right up top. So I always try and keep the lightest stuff in my bag and the heavier stuff in the tunnel bag. And then specifically, I don't know how many of you guys are riding sleds, but you try and keep with your tunnel bag as much of the heavy weight forward. So I can show you that. And always, I don't know if you guys, you should have a second shovel. I don't believe you should be using your avalanche shovel to dig yourself out. You don't want that thing bent or anything like that. So yeah, all my heavier stuff, like my toolkit, will be up front. I keep my first aid kit in here. There's a lot of stuff. So, tools, your parts, rope kit, 20 meters of rope. This is like a tickle trunk. Snow science kit.
Mary
Saw,
Poppins bag.
keep your saw on top. Fire starter. Tarp we were talking about. And I really started this year. I don't know if you guys heard of this, but back seal everything. If you don't want it to get wet, or like, I don't unpack this very often, so all the spare parts in here so they don't get rusty, I will vacuum seal all of them, especially your heat vest, because if you poke it, it's gonna go, right? So, and then this is the oh shit kit. That's zip ties and tape and stuff like that. If you guys are interested in this, I'm a huge nerd when it comes to this stuff. So we can talk about it later. First aid kit, but Dave was saying, just because the bag that your stuff came in, you find it the best way to pack it. Every year I'm trying to improve. So, and light kit, there's more parts in here. So if you gotta have your tickets to the show, everybody's got that. Some more spare items, and then ski straps. That's pretty much it. So there's quite a bit more stuff. If you want to talk about tools that you should have, I'm pretty heavy on the tools, but I don't think you should be snowmobiling ever. I would feel absolutely naked. So anybody wants to talk about what you carry, I can hit that later.
I kind of like how you touched on like the first letter to have like the extra shovel on your sled, and then you have your Abby gear. So like on that note, and all you guys have like all touring specific backpacks, right? So if you're new to touring, you want to make sure you're using like a touring specific backpack, because there's a specific pocket for all of your rescue gear to go into, your probe, your shovel, and you shouldn't have those just like in the general part of your bag, right? One of you, maybe you could show what that looks like. It should have like a designated color tab. Go.
It's really shiny, Bruce. Do you use that stuff?
Yeah, your saw goes in there. Awesome. Cool. Well, that was a lot for the bag. So let's move on to some lesson learned. What's something you used to not carry but absolutely do now, and what changed your mind? Someone wants to start.
So I think I already mentioned this and touched on this, but that RAB bivy sort of micro shelter is something that I used to not carry ski touring because I always carried it guiding because I was either in a cat or a heli. But now, even for ski touring, they're so light. This is something I always throw in there. So like I mentioned, I ditched the survival blanket. You can carry that too, but this is great, and it has that multi-function. One, it can be used as a tarp. I can wrap people up and drag them for a bit, so it can be a mini type of toboggan. So a lot of different usages, and its weight, now it always lives in my pack. So that's things that I carry now all the time that I didn't used to.
I think there's lots of things, but one of the things, because I clearly need to cut down on weight, is so I used to carry a thermarest, and then I found this cool thing. It's called Air Base Inflatable Insulation Pad. So it takes about, I think it's like 5 puffs to blow it up. But the cool thing is that if you poke a hole in it, only the one strip deflates, not the whole thing. I don't really know how else to explain that, but yeah. But yeah, replaces my thermarest, so it's super light. I think it's like $15 or something like that. Yeah, and then I'm not taking my personal thermarest out all the time because it's quite a bit bigger than Jay's. So
I'm waiting for mine to show up, and because I'm trying to replace mine with that.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't make money off these.
Yeah, where's that from?
Yeah, so there's a couple different companies that have these. I don't know if Amazon. I got mine off of Wild Med Kits, which is based out of Eastern Ontario, but Tom's, which is Edmonton, Alberta, also sells them. That's where you're going to get a lot of your really good deadly bleed stuff as well, which I'm sure we'll touch on, hopefully.
I never used to carry that much rope gear sledding, and then we had to rappel a snowmobile down a bit of a cliff one time, and now I essentially just carry kind of a parsed down version of my crevasse kit with 20 meters of 6 or 7 mil static cord. I forget what that is. It has to be static if you want to use it for towing or anything like that.
That must have been an interesting story.
Yeah, that's good.
Jay, did you touch on one?
Yeah, much maybe like Jill and even Bruce. Earlier in my career, I didn't carry. I carried tarps. Cheaper ones, things like that, and they're so useful in a really bad situation. Between that and the thermarest, I can't tell you how many times it saved my butt or someone else's butt there. So yeah, those are the two biggest things that maybe they were like negotiables before, but they're like non-negotiables now.
We've got a list up here. If anyone you can take a photo of it. But these are kind of some of the things that these guys all suggested are non-negotiables of what to bring out in the mountains. And Jill, maybe you could touch on like the tourniquet or like deadly bleed stuff, if you want to elaborate on that a bit more.
Yeah, sure. So the way I approach first aid kits, especially if it's in a sport that you can't pack a lot of things, like obviously if you're going rafting, that's a different story. But for ski touring, the goal is to put things in a first aid kit that if you didn't have them, you wouldn't save the life. And so Band-Aids throw that shit out. It's just a waste of space. It's only good for fire starting. So find the 3 things that are non-negotiable in a first aid kit are tourniquet. Okay, you can't improvise that shit. A ready heat vest, because if someone is losing fluid or blood inside or out, and if you don't warm them up, as they get colder, they increase the chance of mortality by 10% with 1 degree of temperature loss. So they lose 1 degree, and the chance of them dying increases by 10%, and then it doubles and triples and quadruples. So keeping someone warm isn't just like a nice, fuzzy, warm thing or like mental health support thing to do. You're saving a life with that. And then epi, Tylenol, Advil. So epi, again, if you don't have epinephrine in your kit and someone has an anaphylactic reaction or a severe asthma attack, that's the only drug that's going to save their life back there. And unfortunately, even though we have volunteer SAR, we're not going to get there fast enough with those types of incidences. And then Tylenol and Advil. So one of the biggest things, obviously, if you have an injury in the backcountry, is managing someone's pain. You give Tylenol and Advil together synergistically, they have the same effect as morphine. So it works really well. And yes, that necessarily won't save a life, decreasing someone's pain. But the studies show that if we manage someone's pain, that they are going to heal faster down the road. So that's the tidbit. And then tourniquets, the one thing I said, not from Amazon. Buying a tourniquet from Amazon would be like the equivalent of buying a recalled Peeps transceiver. Maybe? Yeah. So like one that hasn't been fixed. So it's basically you're playing Russian roulette, is that it might work, it might not work. And so there's organizations that test tourniquets, just like there's organizations that test our transceivers. And so buying a tourniquet from the right place will just make sure that it works and doesn't break on you.
I'd like to hear that.
What's your story, Jay?
Well, I've had to use a tourniquet before in the backcountry. So. Yeah, it's when you need it now, and it needs to work. Yeah, it can save a life.
And a ski strap's not going to do a tourniquet any justice.
No, it's not. It's going to cut and do more damage.
I think mine on here are the toolkit and the rope. So don't go sledding without tools unless you got your skis, because then you can always walk out, right? So, but yeah, you need the tools and you need to know how to use them. So you need to be able to do basic things on your sled. And I highly recommend if you've got a machine, buy the service manual, download it, and put it on your phone. That can help you out of a lot of pinches. You can figure stuff out. You can diagnose codes if you have to come back. And if you don't have, I think one thing I didn't say that breaks often is the pull cord. So you need to have at least a 5 to 6 mil cord to clutch start your sled. So. I ride them all on broken.
Oh, well. Yeah, for me, the extra puffy jacket is something that I bring in all the time, and it's kind of like part of my first aid kit. I think of it that way, similar to what Jill was meaning about just preventing heat loss. And then the micro shelter, the sort of RAB shelter is the other one, sort of for preventing that heat loss. I did throw up communication on there, so whatever communication that you might have, a radio, a phone, Zoleo, Spot, InReach. But one of the other things I also think that you can add to that communication that sometimes gets overlooked is just the simple whistle. I won't tell you how many times, probably Jay and I have been out on searches, we're looking for somebody and trying to find them, and they're just standing there waving their arms and you can't see them. So using a whistle, it alerts people as to where you're at, especially if you go into a tree well, something like that. Having it on a quick part of your pack where you can get to it close to your mouth, and then using it too. So if rescue is coming, you don't want to be sitting there yelling all night long, but you can blow your whistle every once in a while. We've definitely come, even for people who've seen and heard this from afar and been like, I've heard this up on some peak, and the next day we'll bring the helicopter in to find somebody sitting on some little knob of rock halfway up a cliff because they can't go any higher and they can't come down. And that was in Creston, so. But it's just, I really think that it's a simple, non-technical piece of gear that everybody can carry all the time. I like these metal whistles because they can't get broken and they can't smash and there's no pee to them as well. So they always work no matter what.
I think they made songs about that there, Bruce, so we're good, buddy. That's why it's
Yeah,
important.
I don't sing too well, Jay. I'll save you for that one.
I guess some of the ones I said on there, probably one of the ones that I think is probably one I use regularly, daily, more likely, is like a good wood saw, like a proper, something you can cut wood. I use it as my, like when I'm doing my tests, I can do all my snow science pits with it. I can cut wood, so if I can make a fire, I can get wood really quickly. You know, if I have to get a helicopter in, say there's an emergency, I need to cut a few trees down. You can be able to cut some trees down in order to get a helicopter in an emergency. It's also good with the sheath. You can make a splint with that. That can help with a splint as well when you're doing emergencies, stuff like that. So that's a really key point tool I have in my bag. Extra gloves and toques, just like, you know, as you know, your toque gets wet during the day if you're, you know, ski touring and things. So making sure you got enough clothing to keep yourself warm going forward. And then I think the other one I had was just different strapping, right? Know the different, you know, different types of tape. I'm a big hockey tape person. I keep like the cloth hockey tape that sticks in the snow. Some people, you know, if they're a ski patroller, then they're going to have electrical tape on their pockets. You know, just know the advantages and disadvantages. There's different types of tapes, and yeah, ski straps are like actually useful.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming out tonight, showing us your bag. Hopefully everyone here might go home and reconsider what they have in their pack, change some things. If you guys want, you can probably get a hold of these fine people and ask them some more questions about where they find their gear. And you can probably find quite a bit of this gear locally as well. Yeah. I'll also get those links from Jay and Jill, and I'll put them up on the State of the Snowpack as well for everyone to look at. And just while everyone's sitting here, there is an amazing course coming up at the end of February that I highly recommend everybody participate in if you haven't done any sort of like wilderness first aid training. This course completely changed how I pack my bag. I got rid of all of my Band-Aids. But it was created with Jill of Mountain Med and Cooney Backcountry Guides. So there are still, I think, 4 or 5 spots available in this course. There's 2, so hop on it. But it's a 3-day course, 2 days in classroom, and then a day out in the field. You're going to learn how to tarp and move somebody. You're also going to learn how to start a fire, build a shelter, and you'll get your 40-hour wilderness first aid certificate about this. So you can register on Mountain Med Consulting or at CooneyBackcountryGuides.com. So that's it for tonight, everyone. We're going to be back here March 4th for the season finale. Hopefully you guys bought enough raffle tickets, so Jason will be up here with his brother doing a push-up contest. Go play, have fun, be kind, submit those min reports, and we're going to do some raffle prize draws.